This week, we're going to talk about natural selection and evolution. Click on course content, scroll down to the module, click on the module. And this is a controversial subject, and if I convince you of anything this week, is that evolution makes sense. Evolution is real. It explains both the things all life has in common and the diversity we see in life. And there's a logical mechanism behind it that just makes sense. I also need to tell you, it doesn't compete with religion. Um, God put evolution in place. It's a magical thing. It's really amazing. Um, I put a meme here today this time around because that is conceptually that's what evolution is all about. Um, you don't need to be the best at everything. You don't need to be the fastest. You don't need to be the smartest, the tallest. You just need to be better than the other guy. And anytime you have a population, there are some creatures, some organisms that are better at something than the other guy. And if there's an evolutionary pressure on something, something provides you with an advantage, you're more likely to survive. So this week we've got a couple of different chapters, but I really just want you to read chapter 11 in detail. Chapter 12 through 15 just gives you different examples. And I tell you in detail about what I want you to talk about, what I want you to read about in the tour guide. Then you've got a couple of materials in the demonstration section. Um, then in terms of assignments, you've got a discussion board. You've got some critical questions, critical thinking questions I want you to answer. There's a quiz. And then there's a bonus um, natural selection with bunnies that I want you to play. Helpful documents is usually can be found here, so click on it. It gets you to the helpful documents. And this time, the one I really want you to look at is I want you to read through this. This will help you get through the chapters. You don't need to read the whole chapter. Um, Read through this. I give you examples about how evolution works with, like, in plain English, with different examples of animals that I'm running through here. Um, Then I talk about the story of the peppered moth, which is a natural selection story that was happening in England. Um, and I play through a couple of scenarios. And I want you to read through this because I want you to then talk about a scenario just like that in your discussion board. And then here is where we're talking about the chapter. So I want you to read chapter 11 pretty much in its entirety. But chapter 12, 13, 14, and 15, I really just a couple of paragraphs. I want you to just look a couple pictures, read through a couple of paragraphs, because those drive kind of the idea of evolution home. Um, the book is here. You get a direct link to chapter 11, but you know how to get to the other ones. I want you to listen to Bozeman's biology and Hank's biology. Actually, let me point one more thing out to you in the concepts book, because the concepts book actually has a really good discussion about common misconceptions about evolution. Um, these are concepts that people have a lot of issues with as they're trying to explain evolution. These are the misconceptions where people are saying, "Oh, it's just a theory." No, it's the best explanation we have for the facts that we observe. So similar to, you may not like the explanation who killed who or who burglarized what house, but if you just follow the evidence, that's where you're going to get to. And that's what I want you to understand. Um, it's not individual, it's population. We're not talking about Big Bang Theory here, right? There's no purpose behind it, but there doesn't have to be a purpose behind it. And sometimes criminals don't necessarily do things from malice, right? It just sometimes it just happens, right? Um, it's not controversial. All scientists agree, and there are really no other theories that are valid. So that's basically read through these misconceptions. It's actually a pretty decent discussion. Then in terms of activities and assignments, I want you to do as usually you have a quiz. Then I've got a discussion board for you where I want you to talk about one of those scenarios. Pick one animal. I don't care which one it is. Um, you can, talk about the penguin. A polar bear has been a favorite in the past. Talk about, I mean, you can talk about the flu virus if you want to. You can talk about the giraffe. But if you're going to talk about the giraffe, you need to talk about why is it not getting any taller? Um, why are rattlesnakes losing their rattles in Texas? Um, think of a creature of your choice, something that you've wondered about. Why did horses get so tall? Um, pick one and think about it. Then I'm gonna want you to answer a couple of questions in the. Actually, I want you to answer three. I need to correct that. Three of the critical thinking questions in the back of chapter 11 through 15. And then we've got a little game, natural selection with bunnies. So when you click on that, you get to this activity. It allows you to play through a natural selection activity. So when you click through there, you got this bunny. You can give it a mate. And then as this generation counter changes, um, you can get more bunnies. Um, now, if you let this run, and you can make this speed up if you want to make it run faster. Um, if you let this run, then after about 6 generations, the bunnies take over the world. And of course, when they take over the world, they all would, die anyway, because, yeah. Then you can start over. Got to have a mate because we're doing sexual um, reproduction here. You can add a dominant or recessive mutation. The mutation comes with the next cycle. Um, and then you can add wolves to the mix. And when you add wolves to the mix, you then have predation, and you can make this thing run faster if you want to. And then you can see what changes, how many generations this goes, and if there anything that's happening with regards to the brown versus the white bunnies. Um, and yeah, so you can just play through these scenarios, try a couple of different things, and see what happens. You don't want to change you can change the environment, but you don't want to change the environment in the middle, right? So leave the environment the same, depending on which game you want to play. Um, and note that you may want to play around with the dominant versus recessive gene. What, you know, leaves you with none of the colors, but just play with that. um, and that's all I want you to do this week. Have some fun with this.